You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. In case you're brand new to the podcast, I'm excited that you're tuning in. And if you're a regular listener, then welcome back. I'm your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm a public health entrepreneur. Have well over 20 years. I should start saying 25 years of experience in healthcare, public health, and I have helped so many entrepreneurs along the way. On this podcast, typically it's just me sharing strategies, tips, advice, tidbits, and so forth. But occasionally I bring on a guest that will serve as inspiration and to introduce you to someone who's walking this walk and doing this work. So I'm joined by a guest today that is a very dear friend. I've worked with her for a very long time. And I almost want to say she's like my star student. I've been able to watch her business really take off. And it's been so exciting to be on the sideline and just kind of with you on this journey. So Ericka Horne, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about all the great things that I've been able to do with my business. I'm Jamaican American. I am originally from South Florida. I am the CEO and founder of AKCIRE Consulting. That's the name of my business. And with my business, I get the opportunity to work with faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and help them with their program planning, implementation of health-related programs. Those can include like health fairs or forums, symposiums, panel discussions, anything that's related to health. That's where I'm able to use my gift for good in my business.
I love that. And it's been a journey to get to this point, right?
Yes, it has.
Trying to figure out all the different things. Where do I niche this down? I love it because I'm just having all the flashbacks to just if we think like we're recording this June of 2024. So a year and a half ago, I remember a very different type of introduction.
Yes, a very completely different person in business.
Yeah, so you've really grown so much and excited about that. So we're going to dive a little bit more into what you do, but let's kind of start with your initial segue into public health. When did you first learn about public health as a career?
I love that question because it's specific to talking about public health as a career. So initially, I grew up and I knew I was always going to be a doctor. So I always thought medical doctor, especially coming from the Caribbean, the background. So I was always going to school and pursuing anything in the healthcare field. So from my undergrad at Florida State, I was a pre-med student there. And I didn't have the best experience with all of my courses, but I still pursued and was trying to pursue pre-medicine as the end goal because I knew I was going to be a doctor. So after my undergraduate experience, I started doing clinical work. I got certified as a medical assistant because I knew I wanted to see what the experience would be like in the healthcare setting. And everything I thought that would best qualify me for medical school. So I said, maybe getting this experience, learning more about the field, actually doing hands-on work would help set me apart for that journey. And so I was working in a doctor's office as a medical assistant for about 2.5 years. I was doing primary care and I loved everything that I was doing. But I noticed that we would see the same diagnoses over time. So all of our patients maybe in one day may have all had diabetes, high blood pressure, hypercholesterolemia, and we would be saying the same things or giving the same message about treatment and prevention and for those who may have been at risk for these different health diseases. And we're given the same advice. And in my mind, it didn't make sense that we would be telling one person, like just 15 different people, the same thing. To me, I said, why don't we just tell everybody at once? So I was already had the mindset of prevention when it comes to public health and implementing health programs without realizing that it was a career field. So after about 2 years, I would transition over to the emergency room. I just wanted something different within healthcare, just to see my options, to see, okay, I got this experience. Let me see if I really want to do it. And I absolutely loved my experience there as well. But I was then exposed to more disparities that we're seeing in health, especially with rural populations and under-resourced and underserved. And migrant populations that I was able to work with. And while working at the emergency room, someone mentioned and said, "Hey, did you ever consider getting a master in public health?" And I was like, "What's that?" I was like, "I've never heard of public health before." And so I looked it up and started doing some research into what the career field was like. And I was like, wow, this is what I love. Like, this was a passion of mine. This is how I see myself living my life every day, everything related to public health. And I love that it's broad. I love that I can go to many different areas, go from epidemiology, go to health promotion. When I got certificates in health education and promotion and epidemiology. And then I also went on to obtain my certified health education specialist because they are all so important to the field. So initially I thought pre-med, I'm going to be a doctor, but actually working in the field. And I had one person that actually asked me, "Hey, have you heard about public health?" And from there, the trajectory has skyrocketed. I'm gung-ho public health all day, every day.
I love that because I think it's a common type of thing to hear people say they kind of fell into or discovered public health, but it was similar to me. Like you said, knowing that that's what you wanted, but didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know that,
Yes.
And once I realized it was like, oh, well, yeah, this is what I wanted all along. That's really great. So also keeping in mind, I'll add to my next question a little bit, kind of like two parts. I'm curious to know, when did you decide to move into entrepreneurship, like on this path? And then kind of the other part of that is, how has your other positions helped prepare you for this entrepreneurial path?
I think the time when I realized I wanted to go into entrepreneurship was more so when I started my doctoral program. So I'm also a doctor of public health student at Florida A&M. And in this journey, I noticed I would see a lot of people sharing the work that they were doing for different institutions, organizations, whether it's the government and in academia. And sometimes I noticed that there were some restrictions that may have been placed on them due to legal reasons. They couldn't do certain things or say certain things or act certain ways. And then I got a job at the State Department of Health. And I also realized that there were still some things that I could not do, even though I had a passion for it. So while I was able to do what I could, there were still some restrictions or limitations placed on me. And that kind of made me want to find out, is there a way to still do all the things I want to do without the restrictions, without being limited by these rules and regulations that you have to abide by? And realizing that, I started taking my jobs differently, in a sense of I started learning what I needed to learn in these roles, working at the state health department, working in a hospital system, working in primary care, working in rural health, working in chronic disease management, working with children. So utilizing all these different experiences, I started just learning more so that I could be used to be that consultant to come in and help implement programs. Because while I realized I may not have been able to do them, we were able to bring in people who did have the latitude to do those very things that I wanted to do. And so it shifted to more of, how do I get to be on the other side that's doing what I want, instead of just the regulatory side that I was on at the time. And that transitioned me into just doing more research into what is consulting, who are these people, what are they doing? And I actually came across your podcast when I was just in my search, just trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, these people are doing great things, and just learning about how epidemiology is in the everyday works. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I just started finding and following different entrepreneurs and started learning about consulting. And then I started making sure that I was skilled enough doing the certifications, taking the classes I needed, furthering my education along to make me the best person, the subject matter expert in the area that I knew I was going to be consulting in. So that's kind of how I transitioned into that, like knowing like, okay, entrepreneurship is where I'm headed.
Oh, I love that. And I don't think I really knew that before. I've known you for a while. I remember when we first met at a conference, and you had already been listening to the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast for a while. And you shared with me, you said a whole lot of stuff with that introduction.
I did. Like really fast.
But I think that this path is not for everyone, but I think the people that are drawn to it for different reasons, like you said, the restrictions, the freedom to do and speak and act the way that you feel led to do, all of those things are very appealing to the people that decide to come this direction. So let's talk a little bit about your structure. So your business, tell me a little bit more about the kind of work that you do as well. You did in the introduction and give me a few examples of some of the types of work.
So I've had the opportunity to help plan like health fairs for my church that I attend as well, but also other churches. And so with that, I help reduce the burden of those who may not be in the field by connecting them to resources, helping to plan out what the day will look like, getting a team of volunteers, and just being able to be the hands-on person to run the event from top to bottom, hosting it. I've also been able to go in and do speaking engagements around whatever health topic that people are interested in. So that's a part of the work, whether it's women's health, adolescent health, also working with mentoring groups locally in the area. I've helped curate their health fairs. So like a health and wellness day for their young ladies, and then they bring their families in. And then I'll do health education information that's particular to the young ladies, whether it's menstrual health or sexual health, and just making sure that they're receiving the information that they typically may not receive or they may not be in a space to receive. I've also had the opportunity to do some subcontracting with my business. And because I am still in school, I'm not always able to do a lot of full-time work, but I do take the opportunity to leverage some of the subcontracting opportunities. And I was able to become a mental health first aid instructor. So with that, I've been able to instruct first generation students like myself, first year students like myself on mental health first aid and being able to recognize signs and symptoms. So that's another way that I've poured into myself and taking the classes to make sure I'm prepared to help out somebody else and provide that for other businesses. And then being able to provide those trainings to church leaders, other clergy who are in need and want to learn how to recognize those different signs and symptoms to prepare them in what they're doing. So those are a few things I've been able to do. Just really being a connector to the community because I'm really ingrained in the community. But outside of doing it in my community, I've been able to leverage that in other areas where I may not be living because of the skills that I have, but learning how to find them. And doing the state work, I've been able to make connections across the state as well to do that as well.
Thank you for going further into that. For as long as I can remember, we're well aware of the power of these faith-based partnerships in public health. And it's, I want to say, vital to really nourish those partnerships. And it takes certain skill set, certain people that are positioned, you know what I mean, to nurture those relationships. So there's some things that are just going to happen in the context of the partnership with the church and public health, the right connections that won't happen otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I think that that is extremely important service and source and a great way to kind of build for your business. And for you, I noticed that a lot of this is so second nature that you're just like, it's almost like, I get to do this in my business. You know?
Yes, that's what I love. That's what I love so much about it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So do you run your business? And this is just helping people. I'm asking this question because some people are trying to figure out, how do I start? You know, we know a lot of people that kind of rip the Band-Aid off and they jump all in and they get their business going. And some people work a job while they build their business and then they eventually leave the job and they're full-time in the business. Where do you fall? How do you operate? You know, kind of gave you two extremes and there's all sorts of combinations of how this could work. But just to kind of think for people that are listening and thinking about how to do this, just giving them some options.
So for me, I run my business part-time. I work full-time for a university, and that allows me to ensure that my basic needs are met because I am still a full-time college student as well in my dissertation phase, and I still have bills. And I know that with the type of work that I've been able to do, it takes a lot out of me. So the time may not always equal the money coming in at the time a bill may be due. So for me right now, running my business full-time is not the best idea. I do eventually believe that I'll be getting there because it becomes overwhelming once you actually start and people start learning about what you do and how you're able to assist them with what they're trying to do. And I've been able to witness that already. Mm-hmm. I do understand that, you know, there's going to be a time where I may have to pull back. But for now, I'm able to work full-time. And while I'm working full-time, it's in a position that's helping me still grow, not just academically, but professionally with certifications. And so they're ensuring that I'm the best person for the role that I'm in. So that also helps me when it comes to me being able to consult for my business afterwards.
I think it's wonderful. I've personally witnessed. You were just, I'm going to brag a little bit because I think that for everyone listening, this is important. When you can align just who you are without having to try to shift into any other persona, but just being yourself and being able to connect with a population or problem or issue that you're passionate about and just being more of you. It's work, but it's the work that you enjoy and you love. And for Ericka, I've watched this, she's in this sweet spot. She's got this fabulous network and you're just living in it and you're able to monetize and build a business around what you were already doing naturally. And you are learning a lot. And I think that working and running your business teaches you a lot to keep your business really lean. You're not throwing a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be there. You're still figuring things out and refining programs and offers and learning to say no to certain things that don't exactly fit you. But we were together, I think one of our retreats, and we were talking, and you got a phone call for someone that was just reaching out because I guess you said, reach out to me when, we want to talk about this. So it's like a business call, like, okay, they're ready to work with you. And you have had such an incredible response from people who are just ready to work with you all the time. So that's really been a lot of fun to see because that's not always the case with people getting started. So that's something that I've watched you grow really well into since we've been together. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I think authentically being me has really made the difference. Like you said, not trying to be anybody else, not trying to do what I've seen everybody else do. Like I can look at them for inspiration and guidance, but then at the end of the day, what am I supposed to be doing?
Exactly.
And that's definitely played a major role.
Yeah, I love that. It's very inspiring for our other members in our mastermind group too. Okay, so this is where we kind of talk about the good and bad and the ugly. So what do you like most about consulting and entrepreneurship?
I think I mentioned it. I really love the freedom to do what I want to do without limitations and restrictions. I love the flexibility that I can create my schedule. I can create what projects I want to work on. I can say yes and I can say no. And I've learned how to say no a lot better.
Yes.
I don't have to just take every opportunity that comes my way unless, it necessarily aligns with the business mission and the values that we have set forth. And I like that I can actually be who I want to be without feeling like I have to show up as somebody else.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Just refreshing to hear. And I absolutely agree. And that's the allure for a lot of people, that freedom. So let's be fair. What do you like least about entrepreneurship?
What do I like least? I will say, because I am starting out and I actually still work and I'm in school, the administrative part is not my tea right now. It is not somewhere where I happily live. I, look forward to the day where I can have like an assistant to help with upkeep and emails and the social media. And I'm still working on building that aspect because when I started my business, I didn't have social media. I still don't have one. I just am starting a LinkedIn page, but because I've already been able to be blessed with work, it didn't seem like a major priority. So I'm still just trying to navigate how to do all those things. And I realized that that's not my favorite part. I also realized I don't like asking about money per se. Like I don't like the selling part. I know it's essential. I realized it's not as taboo or as scary as I thought it was at first, having those conversations, but I realized it's not what I like to do. I like to just do the work. Yeah. So anything behind the scenes, I'm realizing I'm not a fan of for myself. Mm-hmm. I can do it for others because that's what I do in my business. But I think because I do it for others, I don't like to do it for myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. I think two things I want to circle back on that you said. Definitely the structure. So the systems. And I started also when I was working full time and I didn't even know what I was going to do at the beginning. I just knew I wanted something. And so we're just trying to figure it out. So I did start to hire support early because I was working full time. I have family and all these other responsibilities and then this business. And I didn't want all of the little bit of free time that I had to go to all of the administrative things. So part of my investment into the business was before the business really made money was I just invested in having that support on a small level, but the podcast is so time consuming. So that was something. But it also helped to inspire me to quickly monetize that. So that podcast needed to bring in revenue because it's costing me money. So the goal was just to kind of level its expenses at the very beginning. So I think for you, what you're starting to do, because, we work together and I'm very familiar with this. So helping you to just kind of learning to say no to things was a big part.
Absolutely.
Because that helped you at least to start making the most of your time and energy spend. And I think very soon we can start to talk about, in fact, little side note, at our next mastermind, we're going to talk a lot about teams. So you may get some ideas about how you can bring on some support as well, even at this earlier, newer stage. So I think that that's something that'll be helpful for you. So the second thing that I wanted to circle back on was you mentioned the sales and not loving the sales. And I get that. And I do teach and coach a whole lot. Like, it's so much easier for me now, but I don't forget when it was really awkward. So I invested a whole lot in learning to become comfortable with that, because I had a coach around that at one point that said, you have to learn to love sales. Otherwise, without sales, you have no business. And I thought that is just perfect, right? But it's common for us to not be comfortable with that. And we've worked with a lot, you've heard me reframe it multiple times. And I think that's helped you too. It's really more of a match. It's like finding the match. Is this organization, because they're looking for the problem. They don't have the issue about paying you for it. It's just we feel weird about it. So when we can start to frame it as, we're getting to help them and we're providing a solution that they're already looking for. And when we match up, everybody's excited. Then we don't have to feel so bad about that.
Yes.
But it's a process. And you've definitely come a long way with feeling much more comfortable with that and secure in that. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's very fair to mention, because a lot of people, it's very difficult. And I don't forget how difficult it used to feel. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, one more question for you. Now, kind of going back to the work that you're doing, and we've talked about this, but I like to hit the nail on the head with this for people that are listening. In what ways are you advancing public health through your business?
Oh, I really like this question. I would say one of the first ways that I'm advancing public health is through health education. As a certified health education specialist, I realize and recognize the importance of our world, those we live with, those that are in community with us, being able to understand what they are dealing with in their health and bringing it to a level that they can understand. So a lot of times, initially, I remember growing up, the doctor may have said something, but my parents may not have understood, or family members may not have understood. We're Caribbean, backgrounds different. And when you're asking someone about the type of foods they eat or the type of physical activity they're doing, it may not be the same as it is here in America. So just understanding the importance of culturally relevant, culturally responsive health education that's tailored to the community that you're serving. So I get to do that when I get to work with these organizations. My slogan is solutions with you in mind. Before we do anything, I find out what it is that's important to the individual, to their organization. And then we tailor our responses and the programs around who they are, because there really are solutions with them in mind. Also, we're very passionate about not just health education and health promotion, but reducing health disparities across the world. However that may look. We'll be international one day, but how do we get to reduce health disparities nationwide for communities of color, Black and brown people, and making sure that we reduce those gaps in health that we're seeing across the world in many different things. And those are just a few of the ways that I get to advance public health within my business. And I'm really excited about continuing to do that, because especially in the rural areas, especially in underserved, marginalized communities, they're not receiving the care. But beyond the care, if they were to understand things a little bit better, if they were to just understand things in a way that's meaningful to them, if you bring it down to the lowest level, that the highest person has an elementary school degree, everything needs to be down to that level for them to understand. And just making it plain to those communities we serve, that's what's important to me. And that's how I get to advance public health.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I think a lot of people I feel like they're getting aha moments and thinking, oh, this is possible for me. And I just have to kind of echo that there's so much power in being able to take something that's super structured or scientific and listening to an epidemiologist, which I feel like sometimes we speak our own language, but there's something powerful about taking that and creating it in a way or recreating it in a way that, like you said, the community that we care about can understand it. Meeting them where they're at, we say all the time, right? That's what that means. And then people can make their own decisions. We don't need to walk around telling people what to do. We need to help them understand the information we're trying to relay. And then it also positions us when you take that to heart and that's where you lead, you're in a position to learn so much more than you ever will learn in any classroom setting. Because when the community trusts you and open up, they're really going to share things with you that you would never have otherwise known. So it's very mutual, right? So I'm glad that you get to experience that. I think, again, back to one of the reasons why, like for you, things are just, you're so busy and you're having that kind of attraction, you're attracting your clients everywhere, is because this is so second nature to you. You're always thinking and relating, connecting to the community. So this has been wonderful. I appreciate you. I love what you're doing and I'm excited to continue to support you. Now, I mentioned our mastermind program. Now, for listeners of the podcast, I talk about our mastermind program often. There are only 2 times a year that you can enroll. So depending on when you're listening to this, it may or may not be enrollment time, but our website has full details and I'll make sure that it's linked in the description and on the show notes. But Ericka, you were one of our founding members. And that has been clearly remembered. Like I said, you were in person at our retreat. You joined when we first started the program. We've got a mixture of virtual experiences and several in-person retreats since then. Is there anything that you could share? Would you mind sharing with people listening that might be thinking about the mastermind program or considering that?
I would say if you're thinking about it, if you're on the edge, just do it. The amount of support that I have received from not even having a business name to having a business that has income coming in would have not been possible without the support of not only Dr. Huntley, but the others that you're in the mastermind with. I love that everyone is doing their business their way and it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is a competition. I have to be better than this person, outshine this person here. Like we genuinely support everybody where they are in their journey. And I just love that it's a group of people who truly have a passion for public health and for entrepreneurship and for doing it in a way that's meaningful. Like it's not just random, everybody's there dedicated to their cause and they're strong, they're firm in that. And when I first started, even though I didn't know what my cause was, I wasn't sure what my niche was, I was able to get real feedback from everybody and real support and just had a place to bounce ideas off of, a place to learn about new tools, a place to learn about new rules, just reminders about, hey, don't forget to file these and learning things about taxes. And it's like, I would not know any of the things if it wasn't for the mastermind. I would not be where I am as far as I am in my business without the mastermind. So I'm eternally grateful. And if you're on the fence and you're like, I think I know a little bit and you just want a little bit of support and you're like, maybe this is it, I highly recommend you do it. I highly recommend you join.
Oh, thank you, Ericka. I think you mentioned something earlier about you haven't gotten this yet. I'm trying to set this up. You came in with this real strength already. And I teach over and over again, the power of networking, right? Both on LinkedIn, like virtually and in person. We go over and over and over that and the power in your next connections, your first client, your next client is likely in your network. And you came in with just a learning positioning. So you were ready to take it in and apply it. The other piece of that, you put it to action. And you're just such a great example of how to tap into the network. It's about, making sure people understand what I'm doing because your network is really strong and powerful, which is another part of your success. But in that community, like you're saying, like you're inspiring others, it's just such a great mix. I love it. I'm very biased, but it's very rewarding on so many levels. So thank you for sharing about your experience in there. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you for taking time. You're working your dissertation, you're doing all these things at the same time. So thank you for pausing and coming to share with us on this episode. I'm excited to continue to work with you and see the next leg of the journey, 6 months from now, a year from now, what that looks like. So again, I appreciate you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor.
Well, thank you everyone for listening, and check the show notes in the description for links to connect with Ericka. The only thing I'm going to add to that is if you're looking to start your business, I'm not saying reach out to Ericka and ask her how to help you get started with your business. Okay. So that's what this podcast is for. That's what other programs we offer is for. But if you are inspired and you resonate with her in some way, then connect with her on LinkedIn, follow her and comment, engage with her on her posts, and learn more about her business. And maybe, who knows, you may have an opportunity to refer business to her or connect someone that you know that you think might be someone she should meet or an organization to consider. All of those things are what I encourage you to do. And hopefully you've taken some good notes and you've gotten some inspiration. And when you do connect with her on LinkedIn, let her know you heard her on this podcast. I think that would be a great introduction and a great way to open up a conversation. So until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.